Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here. Welcome to the live commentary stream of the 2017 Spanish Grand Prix. We are just about 13 minutes away from the start of the formation lap here. At the moment, let's just go through the qualifying order and set the stage for today's fifth round of the 2017 FIA Formula One World Championship. The starting grid looks a bit like this. In pole position, car number 44, Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes. His Q3 lap time of 1:19.149. Very quick lap by the Englishman. In P2, and almost not qualifying at all, Ferrari told him that he had a severe engine problem and actually told him to stop the car on his way out in Q1. However, Vettel just asked them to confirm that, and then they said everything was okay. P2, Sebastian Vettel, his Q3 time, a 1:19.2 dead. P3 for car number 77, Valtteri Bottas, also of Mercedes, his lap time, a 1:19.373. P4, the unflappable Finn, Kimi Räikkönen, for Ferrari, 1:19.439. P5, number 33, Max Verstappen in the first of the Red Bulls, 1:19.706. P6, the second of the Red Bulls, Daniel Ricciardo, 1:20.175. In P7, the storyline of the weekend so far, after vomiting tons of oil out the back of the car in FP1 on his outlap, Fernando Alonso somehow managed to put that recalcitrant McLaren Honda on P7 here for his home race, the lap time of 1:21.048. P8 for Sergio Perez in the Force India, 1:21.070. P9, Felipe Massa, 1:21.232. P10 for Esteban Ocon, rounding out our Q3 finishers, 1:21.272. In P11 for Haas is Kevin Magnussen with a 1:21.329. P12, Carlos Sainz in the Toro Rosso, 1:21.371. P13, Nico Hülkenberg for Renault, 1:21.397. P14, the second Haas of Romain Grosjean. Grosjean complaining again about the brakes in that car. He said they were better in China and Russia, and now they've fallen off the cliff again. However, Grosjean managed to put in a 1:21.517. P15 for Pascal Wehrlein in the first of the Saubers, 1:21.803, and now going into our Q1 finishers. Marcus Ericsson in the second Sauber, 1:22.332. P17 for Jolyon Palmer in the Renault, 1:22.401. Palmer in a post-qualifying interview saying that it was a mystery as to why he was so slow. I've yet to hear Palmer talk about him making a mistake, as in he's not quick enough. He always has to blame someone or something else for his pace. P18 for Lance Stroll in the Williams, 1:22.411. In contrast to Palmer, Stroll said that, yes, qualifying is difficult for him so far this year and that he's working on it. Personal responsibility. Pass it on. P19 for Stoffel Vandoorne in the McLaren, 1:22.532. Vandoorne has been hit with a grid penalty because he's going to have to take another power unit. And rounding out the grid in P20, Daniel Kvyat in the second Toro Rosso, 1:22.746. That rounds out the starting grid. As to why Kvyat struggled in Q1, he said that the car, exactly, just wasn't there. In an interview with Will Buxton on the NBC channel, he said that he just wanted to turn everything upside down and start again from scratch with the setup. As far as I'm aware, Toro Rosso have not made any significant changes to that car overnight, as Kvyat is on the grid. So that means they have had to comply with the Parc Fermé regulations there. So we will see how Kvyat gets on in the race, which is now just about 10 minutes away. Very exciting here to get the European season underway. This really does feel like the start of a whole new championship. Yes, this is already round 5 of 2017, but when Formula One returns to Europe on its home soil, this is really when I feel that the season is properly underway. Very glad here that we are in Spain today, and I do think we have a very good race on our hands. We've got Hamilton, of course, on pole position, and he is only about half a tenth in front of Sebastian Vettel on aggregate lap time here. We all know that Sebastian Vettel does like to make a good opening lap, and we'll see if he'll be able to outstart Hamilton. We do know that Hamilton still trying to get used to the clutch release process in Formula One. This is an issue of his that goes all the way back to 2014. Can Vettel capitalize on the start? I think it's possible. Also, Bottas, we saw what he did 2 weeks ago in Russia. He's also no stranger to making great starts. Maybe we can have a three-way fight for the lead into turn one. Who knows? Of course, P5, Max Verstappen, we all know what he's capable of. He won this race last year. You keep an eye out for Max Verstappen, of course. Fernando Alonso in P7. This is his home Grand Prix. He knows he's probably not going to finish the race because Honda are now on power unit number 6 or something for him. I'm not entirely sure. I know it's at least 4. It's not a good situation over there at McLaren in terms of their engines. And as I mentioned already, Van Dorn has a grid penalty. He'll be starting last, and I think from the pit lane, actually, due to that engine penalty, he did have to take a new power unit, I do believe, for this Grand Prix. So lots of things to watch, and then of course all of the unpredictability of a Formula One race start. We are now just about 8 minutes away. Yes, I do agree with you there. Bottas could be dangerous off the start. He is on the clean side, and he will have the slipstream from, at very least, Hamilton, and possibly from Vettel as well, depending on how Vettel positions himself. We all remember what Vettel did in China, basically parking the car in the middle of the road on the grid, so we'll see if he tries anything similar. He wasn't reprimanded for it in China, so there's no reason why he might not want to try it again here. Also, Alonso's Q3 appearance. That is just incredible. That car just belching oil all over the place in the first lap of FP1, and now it's on P7. I don't know how else to explain that other than Fernando Alonso. He truly is one of the grittiest, most determined, and most skilled drivers we have ever seen in the history of Formula One. Will McLaren get to the checkered flag? I'm going to say no for Van Dorn, because he has a new power unit in there, and knowing McLaren and Honda's disarray this year, yeah, I don't think he's going to see the checkered flag. Alonso, it's a possibility. However, I don't really feel too optimistic, only because Alonso put in one hell of a qualifying effort, and I think that probably ate up about 80% of the mileage on that Honda engine. So we'll see. We're just about 6.5 minutes away at this point. We'll pull away here a little bit, and we'll come back once we have some action on the grid. And a little PSA here for everybody. If you are new to the live commentary stream, I am not obviously going to be broadcasting real race footage, no Formula One footage whatsoever here. So please do position yourself strategically between my voice and your television or other device with which you can watch the Grand Prix in real time, so that you can still enjoy the commentary and participate in the chat here, as well as stay up to the second with all of the televised action. Nick, thank you very much for that. I was actually up all night long making something that's going to be released actually tomorrow, but technically at midnight tonight my time. So I'm on the east coast of the United States, so you could do the time conversion there. We are just 5 minutes to 8 a.m. here on the east coast, so you can figure out what time that'll be for you. But thank you very much. I have a lot of fun doing this, and yeah. it's just really cool to see how many people actually do like what I like for driving pretend race cars on the internet. It's awesome. One stop or two stop, I think that's going to be dictated by the tire wear. We know that the hard tires are too hard, so it may be a question of just teams wanting to get off of the hard tires if they're running them. Depends on when they're going to be running them. I don't think anybody's going to be starting on the hards. Obviously, the top 10 qualifiers won't be, because their Q2 tires are now going to be what they start the race on. Maybe we'll see some strange strategies at the back of the grid. Perhaps Van Dorn will do something strange, wanting to go deep into the first stint. Perhaps Kvyat or Stroll as well, but we'll see. It could well be a one-stop. I do think most teams will try to run a one-stop, as we've seen in a couple other races so far this year. The tires are plenty durable enough, but it will just be how much time are they losing on those hard tires. Mike Smith, yes, hello, fellow American. You're up even earlier than I am. West Coast. It's got to be 3 a.m. over there. Maybe just about 4. But yes, it's easier to be a NASCAR fan. I was watching the NASCAR race last night from Kansas. Still a little concerned, actually, about Eric Almirola. I haven't heard anything of his condition. I just saw the car afterward, and they had to cut the roof off in order to extricate him. So hopefully he's okay. I had just heard that he was airlifted to a hospital for observation and that he was supposedly alert, but I don't know anything about his condition. I don't know if anybody knows. Yes, Nick, for sure. Even the Ultrasofts can last for 40 laps or so. So it's not going to be dictated by tire wear, certainly not to the extent that we saw last year, for example. But it's just going to be what's faster when. It'll be dictated by track conditions and perhaps if we have any safety car intervention, somebody in a strategic position may want to take a free pit stop and get an extra set of tires in there. It'll just depend on all of that, really, and of course we don't really know what's going to happen, but I do agree, a one-stop strategy is probably the way this is going to go, and who knows, it's the unpredictability factor that makes this so entertaining. Yes, we are inside. 2 minutes to go. The tire blankets are off, the engines are started, and the mechanics are now clearing the grid. World feed there showing a poster of Max Verstappen. Max, make F1 great again. Obviously, that is a nod to U.S. President Donald Trump and his campaign slogan. However, we've got cars fired up on a grid. Tire blankets coming off on some of them right now. World feed showing Sebastian Vettel just sitting there, the ever-deflating balloon before the start of the Grand Prix. You know he is planning his move into Turn 1 already, and if he can get a jump on Lewis Hamilton at the start, as he is quite apt at doing, I must say, we could see some fireworks into Turn 1, perhaps shades of 2016. Hopefully everybody makes it through the first lap unscathed, but we shall see. I'm more interested here to try and track the progress of Fernando Alonso to see just if he is able to do anything in terms of making inroads on the guys in front of him. We know that he can be quick. However, will the Honda engine be up to the challenge? That is a big if. Alonso has not seen the checkered flag yet this year. The formation lap is underway and the cars have rolled off the grid. Hamilton and Vettel now just getting into Turn 1. On the F1 Live Timing app here, the formation lap is obviously underway. I'm not seeing any activity, though, on timing and scoring. Hopefully that will clear itself out, as it's very important for my purposes here. Drivers just entering Sector 3 now, the front runners anyway. Yes, that minor storyline there, trying to make the drivers more recognizable, that has manifested itself via larger numbers and drivers' names or abbreviations of drivers' names someplace on the bodywork on all the cars. I think it's a little ridiculous. Liberty Media obviously trying to popularize Formula One in new markets, namely the United States, where we're all used to seeing all the drivers and all the cars being identical year to year, basically, in terms of liveries and numbers. So I understand why they did it, but I think it's just a little ridiculous, to be honest. If you're a Formula One fan, you know how to recognize a driver. And to be honest, I think even if all these drivers wore white helmets and drove identical cars, I think we could still probably pick them out pretty accurately, because you just learn to recognize their tendencies and things like that. But clearly the way we do it is to look at their helmets, and their helmets are pretty conspicuous and easily identifiable anyway. Hamilton and Vettel up on the grid. Bottas and Verstappen and Raikkonen now formed up behind them. It appears that Vettel has positioned his car in a rather conventional manner. So he's not parked in the middle of the road as he did in China. We're now just getting the last cars lined up on the grid here. Lance Stroll pulling up, and Stoffel Van Dorn actually is on the grid. He's not starting from the pit lane. All cars in position. The safety car is in position. The green flag is up. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5, pause. They're out, and it's go. Good start across the front row, actually. Vettel perhaps out-dragging Hamilton slightly. Who will lead into Turn 1? They are wheel-to-wheel heading down to Turn 1. Vettel is in the lead. Bottas is alongside Hamilton. Raikkonen having a look. It is Sebastian Vettel leading Lewis Hamilton into Turn 1. There's contact between Kimi Raikkonen and I believe Max Verstappen in the back. Big contact. Fernando Alonso also off at Turn 2. Recovering, going slowly at the moment. He's coming back up to speed. Damage to Felipe Massa's car. Front end is scraping the tarmac. I don't know if it's a puncture or some sort of debris lodged in that front wing. However, lots of sparks flying out of Felipe Massa's car. We're still waiting for Raikkonen and Verstappen to come through. They had interlocked wheels and they just started going backwards, basically. Everybody passing them. Kimi Raikkonen with severe left front suspension damage. The left front tire is turned at 45 degrees inboard to the direction of travel. Kimi Raikkonen will be done for the day. I've not yet seen Max Verstappen. The order here, heading into Sector 3 for the first time. Vettel, Hamilton, Bottas, Ricciardo, Perez, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Sainz, and Verlaine, your top 10. Max Verstappen also looking with terminal damage here. He's traveling in a straight line with his steering wheel turned about 45 degrees to the left. Right front suspension damage for Max Verstappen. His day is done. So far, Raikkonen and Verstappen definitively out of the Spanish Grand Prix. Still waiting to see Felipe Massa again. Perhaps he could recover. It looked to be a puncture, possibly on the right front, not sure. Fernando Alonso has dropped from P7 at the start to P11 right now at the start of lap 2. We have local yellows in sectors 2 and 3, and now I believe they have been stubbed down. Yes, indeed they have been. Still have not seen Felipe Massa. Kimi Raikkonen stopped at turn 10, reporting from timing and scoring. Yellow flags back up in sectors 2 and 3. Max Verstappen taking the old route home with his suspension damage. He still has not recovered to the pit lane. He now enters the pit lane. Kimi Raikkonen switches off, removes the steering wheel. He has found an access road here, a dirt road, someplace on the outside of turn 10. Kimi Raikkonen is done, couldn't even make it back to the garage. At the end of lap 2, Sebastian Vettel does a 26.584 Compare that to Lewis Hamilton's 26.894. The gap is 2.4 seconds, Vettel to Hamilton at this point. Vettel reenacting his Red Bull days, pulling out of that DRS zone in the first 2 laps so that he'll be safe once DRS is enabled. Max Verstappen has made it back to the garage. Red Bull putting the car up on dollies and then pushing it rear first into the garage. Perhaps they're going to try to get him out. It depends on how severe that damage is to the front suspension. That did look pretty terminal to me, however. DRS has been activated. No more hazards out on track according to race control. Felipe Massa apparently still is out on track. He's classified P18 and the last car on track at the moment. He is a full 1 minute behind Sebastian Vettel at this point. I do believe it was just a punctured front tire for Felipe Massa, but we have not seen him since that first lap chaos. World Feed picking up Kimi Räikkönen, just standing there dejectedly at the side of the track. And a very young Kimi Räikkönen fan is in tears. Lewis Hamilton fastest in Sector 1, 23.768. Sebastian Vettel, 23.897. However, Vettel just reset fastest lap of the race with a 126.210. Watching the Sector 2 times, Vettel 32.410, Hamilton 32.337. Hamilton is marginally gaining on Sebastian Vettel at this moment. We'll watch them as they cross start-finish here. Official word from race control, turn 1 incident between Räikkönen and Verstappen, no action warranted. That is what it is. Crossing start finish, Vettel 29.776, the sector times, Hamilton 29.787. So that slight advantage that Lewis Hamilton had in sectors 1 and 2 basically nullified by sector 3. Hamilton, however, sets fastest lap of the race 125.892. Vettel's last time 126.083. Race control says, incident between Massa and Alonso noted, forcing another driver off the track. We will see what happens there. I do believe the victim in that penalty, if there is one, would be Massa, as Alonso was off the track and Massa was not. Looking at a replay of the start here in pretty much real time, trying to see what happened there. Räikkönen he was monitoring Bottas behind him and then turned straight into Max Verstappen, unfortunately. Just ran a little bit too wide off track left there. And unfortunately, that was a terminal hit for both cars. Räikkönen not even being able to make it back into the pits. Replay from above. There was slight contact as well between Valtteri Bottas's left front wheel and Kimi Räikkönen's right rear. That is potentially what pushed Räikkönen into Verstappen. Watching a replay from on board with Bottas, he had a very good start. He was actually gaining very heavily on both Vettel and Hamilton. He had to back out of it. Bottas takes an early apex, and it was the gentlest of taps, rubber-to-rubber contact between the left front of Bottas and the right rear of Räikkönen. However, it was just enough to unsettle Räikkönen's car and punt him straight into Max Verstappen. Very unfortunate incident there. I have to say, though, no blame really to apportion. Raikkonen, he detected the oversteer, applied some opposite lock, the front of the car gripped, and unfortunately it gripped him straight into the side of Max Verstappen. Verstappen, a completely innocent victim there. What happened with Fernando Alonso in replay? Felipe Massa drove him straight off the track. There's no equivocation in that one. Massa either didn't see him or misjudged the amount of space on the right-hand side of the circuit that there was for Alonso, because Alonso had nowhere to go except the gravel there. Yes, and from an onboard with Verstappen with that Turn 1 incident, I can confirm that it is the right front push rod that broke on the suspension there. I don't think they'll be able to repair that. If they do get him back out on track, I suppose it is possible. However, I wouldn't be so confident trying to drive that RB13 with a repaired push rod on the front end. Meanwhile, here back to live action. At the front of the field, the gap between Vettel and Hamilton is 2.6 seconds through Sector 2. Lap times are pretty stable in the 126s up at the front. Vettel, Hamilton, and Bottas all lapping in the 126s. Ricciardo, the sole remaining Red Bull, lapping in the 127s. And then we drop off into the 128s for Perez and Ocon, and Hulkenberg in the Force Indias and Renault respectively. Currently classified as stop on timing and scoring, Kimi Raikkonen, who we know is a definite retirement, and Max Verstappen, who perhaps is still sitting in the car in the garage trying to get that right front suspension repaired. I don't think it is very likely they'll get him back out on track. We can probably class him as a retirement at this point as well. Felipe Massa is still out there lapping in the 127s, so he is essentially on pace with Daniel Ricciardo. He's actually lapping slightly faster than Daniel Ricciardo at this time. Unfortunately, he is down in P18 and the last car running. Yes, Lewis Hamilton saying not easy to keep up with him in reference to Sebastian Vettel. That Ferrari does appear to have a little bit more ultimate pace than that Mercedes. Vettel would probably have been on pole but for a last gasp mistake that he made in his final flying lap, at least one that he says he made. I didn't see any mistake from that on board. It looked pretty perfect to me, but yes, Ferrari definitely showing Mercedes that they still have the upper hand here. Starting the European season, the teams always bring lots of upgrades, if not an entire new B-spec car to the Spanish Grand Prix. Those upgrades obviously paying dividends for both Ferrari and Mercedes, but Ferrari apparently have gotten them a little bit better, it must be said. On that lap, however, Hamilton lapping marginally faster than Sebastian Vettel. Vettel's last lap time, 126.091. Hamilton's best lap at this point, 126.073. Slightly faster than Sebastian Vettel. The gap has come down slightly to 2.498 seconds, so it's down about 7 thousandths of a second than it was before. And as I speak, it goes back up to 2.552. So, yes, basically, Vettel and Hamilton holding station here. Yes, Alonso is doing things that are not humanly possible at this point. The times here between Grosjean in P10 and Alonso in P11. Grosjean's last lap time of 128.702. Alonso's last lap time, 128.716. 14 thousandths of a second is all that's between them. I think we would all say that the Haas is the better package this year. I wouldn't say it's overall the better car because it's only the second car designed by Haas, and McLaren, of course, have been around for over 40 years. However, that Honda power unit is the big equalizer between the two of them, and I think, especially given that Haas are running Ferrari engines, I think Honda are down on power quite a bit. But for Alonso to be that close, that is a big deal, and I think that's down to his raw speed. Sebastian Vettel, new fastest lap, 125.806. Hamilton follows up behind, 125.899. That is a rather big difference now in lap time, although the gap has now come back down slightly to 2.514 seconds. Already working lap 10 here. Carlos Sainz looking at Kevin Magnussen into turn 1. He decides to think better of it. Perhaps he'll try a little over-under maneuver here into turn 3. That's never going to work on the outside. He'll have to hold station here. Carlos Sainz gesticulating wildly there in the cockpit. There was no blocking going on. You just didn't position yourself correctly, I'm afraid. Already working lap 11 of 66 in this Spanish Grand Prix. 14 and a half minutes already gone. This race is going to go down at an absolutely furious pace, I do think. Remember, the Australian Grand Prix was over in less than an hour and a half, and that race normally runs almost up to the 2-hour limit. These new cars are fast. Statement from race control. Turn 1 incident involving cars 14 and 19. That's Alonso and Massa. No action warranted. Under Liberty, the stewards have not really been taking much action during the races. They've been ruling pretty much everything that's happened a racing incident. I'm not entirely sure how fair that is in this case. To me, it's pretty clear that Massa drove Alonso off the track, and they did make slight contact, forcing Alonso to take evasive action. I would throw a penalty in Massa's direction, although there is an argument to be made. Massa is currently running last. Has he already effectively paid that penalty? You can be the judge on that one, but I do put the blame squarely on Felipe Massa for that incident. Kimi Räikkönen has made his way back into the paddock. He is already doffed the overalls, and undoubtedly he is looking for an ice cream. Mercedes telling Hamilton that this is now a critical time in the race. Keep going. I always get very amused by those transmissions because the team telling the drivers, yeah, go fast, go fast. And the drivers always say, what do you think I'm doing? Yes, it would be very cool if Sebastian Vettel could win this World Championship with Ferrari. It would be such a godsend to Maranello, who haven't been challenging for the World Championship really since 2008. And of course, for Sebastian Vettel, a German, already a multiple world champion, to be able to win the title with Ferrari, of course, that would be so evocative of the glory days with Michael Schumacher. So it would be very nice indeed if Sebastian Vettel could win this World Championship. We are a long way from that, however, and your two championship contenders are running first and second right now. So this really does look that the 2017 Formula One World Championship is going to go down to the wire, and I think that's exactly what we all want to see. Action from March to November. That will be so cool. By the time we get around the Belgian Grand Prix at the end of August and the beginning of September between Belgium and Italy, that's when it really starts to get serious with the championship time, and who knows what the complexion of the season will look like by then, but I do venture to say that the same names will still be on top. Perhaps Bottas will be the dark horse there. Alonso and Stroll in the pits. Appears to be just for scheduled pit stops. Van Dorn also in the pit lane. We're going to have to watch him to see. Alonso has exited the pits. Stroll has exited. Will Van Dorn exit or have Honda drop the ball again? We're about to find out. Van Dorn out. Good, 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 good. As in out of the pits. Will Juan Pablo Montoya's 2004 lap record be broken? No. I'm going to say no, only because the lap records are only recorded in the race session. And in 2004, although they had the grooved tires, you've got to remember that there was refueling during the Grand Prix. So every race stint was effectively a sprint on soft, sticky rubber and low tanks. So even though these cars do have, in theory, about the same performance potential, if not slightly more than a 2004 car, by the time they get to the end of the Grand Prix, when the fuel load is down, the tires are also worn out, and maybe they're starting to back off a little bit for some fuel or engine saving. So I do not think we're going to see any lap records reset this year. Yes, being a Ferrari fan in the last decade, let's be honest, has been a little bit difficult. I got my foray into Formula One regularly in 2005. The first race I ever watched live was the 2005 Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, that was won by Kimi Räikkönen for McLaren in the absolutely glorious MP420. But obviously that year, the world champion was Michael Schumacher. I had heard all about his exploits, and my first introduction to Formula One at all via video games. Of course, he was dominating them, so I knew all about that lore, and of course it just attracted me to not only to Ferrari but to Formula One in general. It was just such a cool story. The Turn 1 incident. Felipe Massa was at fault for taking Alonso off the track. Valtteri Bottas, I think he did everything he could to avoid clipping Kimi Räikkönen, but it just wasn't quite enough. He ran out of road. Räikkönen and Verstappen both completely defenseless there. Verstappen punted by Räikkönen, who was punted by Bottas, so I honestly don't think there's any blame to apportion, so I do agree with the steward's decision there. However, Felipe Massa certainly was entirely at fault for taking Fernando Alonso off the track. Alonso, thankfully, was able to resume. However, he is still down now after the pit stops in P14. More cars in the pits. We have Kevin Magnussen in the pits for the Haas. Looks like a good stop. Whoa! Almost contact there in the pit lane between Kevin Magnussen and Carlos Sainz, and they're fighting at the pit exits. Magnussen squeezes Sainz onto the grass in replay here. Now that's naughty. That is definitely a naughty. You could argue that Sainz should back off and just do single file down the pit exit because, well, he is not allowed to pass in the pit exit area there. Of course, he'd have to cross the white line, which is strictly forbidden. However, Magnussen, yeah, that was dirty there. We'll see what the stewards say about that. Sebastian Vettel, after his pit stops, NBC was in a commercial break just coming out of it when Vettel came out of the pits. Vettel has just overtaken his old teammate Daniel Ricciardo for P3 in the pit stop rotation here. Lewis Hamilton resets fastest lap, 125.701. Hamilton has since inherited the race lead. Bottas in P2, Vettel P3. We are expecting Lewis Hamilton to make a pit stop very shortly. Mercedes have not had the upper hand on Ferrari so far this year in terms of tire longevity. We'll have to see what's going on here. Vettel has gone purple in sectors 1 and 2, 23.310 and 32.095 respectively. Hamilton, his last lap time, 126.181. We'll see what Sebastian Vettel is able to do here. Hamilton still, of course, in the lead on the pit stop rotation. Vettel just coming through the end of sector 3, through the chicane. And what is Vettel's first flying lap on these new tires? Vettel, fastest lap, 124.904, by far the fastest lap we have seen so far today. Ferrari have the pace over Mercedes. Hamilton is trying really hard right now to extend that gap as much as he possibly can, but there is absolutely no way that he's going to have the upper hand on Vettel here. Vettel here, 18.9 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. That is within the delta time for a pit stop, so it's going to be nip and tuck in terms of Mercedes getting Hamilton out ahead of Vettel. Hamilton continues on for another lap. When will Mercedes pit? On board with Alonso fighting here with one of the Toro Rossos. I believe that is Daniel Kvyat. This is the fight for P13. Alonso off on the exit of turn 4. He recovers. He is really stringing that McLaren out for all it's worth, and he simply cannot keep up with the Toro Rosso on the straights. Alonso getting DRS down the infield straight, still not able to make really any inroads on Daniel Kvyat ahead. 17.7 seconds now the gap between Hamilton and Vettel for P1 and P3. Hamilton, of course, still has a stop to make. How much longer can Mercedes afford to keep Hamilton out there? He is losing time relative to Vettel, whom he is racing for the win here. At some point, it's going to be counterproductive for Mercedes to keep Hamilton out on these tires. Hamilton on the radio sounding very exasperated. He says he can go a little bit longer if they need. However, the gap is still coming down big time. 16.9 seconds now, the gap between Hamilton and Vettel, P1 to P3. Vettel, fastest in Sector 3. He's gone purple, 29.401. No, it's been an interesting trend here with Hamilton's team radio in 2017. More often than not, when we hear him on the radio, he sounds very exasperated, and it's not something that we're really hearing from too many other drivers. And to hear that from somebody of Lewis Hamilton's fitness in a physical and mental sense, it's a little concerning, to be honest. It does make me think that Hamilton is under a lot of stress this year. I know he's fighting for the World Championship, and I know that he is at a little bit of a disadvantage here relative to Sebastian Vettel, but that's unusual to hear from Lewis Hamilton. We've been hearing it from him a lot so far this year. Official word from race control here. Incident involving Magnussen and Sainz in the pit exit under investigation. Vettel, fastest in Sector 2, 31.95. Hamilton is still out there. The gap between Hamilton and Vettel now 15.5 seconds. It is not productive for Mercedes to keep Hamilton out there. They are going to throw away any chance that they had of winning this Grand Prix right here if they do not get him in now. Yes, I agree there. There should be some sort of consequence there for Carlos Sainz. There was nearly contact between he and Magnussen in the pit exit before they crossed the limiter line at the pit exit, but then Sainz just pulled off to the right and then tried to overtake on the grass. That's never going to work. Years and years ago, I believe 1987, 1988, at the Hockenheim ring, Gerhard Berger tried that down those long straights at the old Hockenheim circuit, trying to overtake people on the grass, and it just doesn't work. Didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. Pit exit incident involving Magnussen and Sainz. The stewards say no action warranted. Okay, I don't think that these stewards are making informed decisions at this point. I understand they want to back off quite a bit in terms of handing out penalties, but that's a little ridiculous. That sets a very dangerous precedent, I have to say, because I can understand wanting to be more lenient on drivers who are defending their position. That's the quote-unquote Verstappen rule for this year, moving under braking and things like that. Yes, that can be dangerous in its own right, but at least you can't fault a guy for trying to defend what he's already got. But what Sainz did there was utterly reckless. There's no way that putting a car on the grass and spinning up the rear wheels is going to end well, and thankfully we got lucky there, but no, I do not think that's correct. Hamilton has pitted. He's passed by Bottas. He's passed by Vettel. He rejoins P3. Yes, he does. Now awaiting a pit stop from Valtteri Bottas. How much longer can Bottas stay out? Hamilton has gone to the medium tires here. Daniel Ricciardo has also pitted and out. Wait for him to pass the timing loop at the end of the pit lane. Daniel Ricciardo now on the medium tires as well. Stoffel Van Dorn still out there running P16. I am very surprised that the McLaren has made it 22 laps into the Grand Prix. In both cases, Alonso and Van Dorn still out there. Two McLarens in the race at this moment. Sebastian Vettel just 5/10 behind Valtteri Bottas at this point, and he is gaining on him massively through every single corner. Bottas is holding Vettel up at this point. Vettel getting very close there to the rear of Bottas in the chicane. He's going to have to be careful not to take his own front wing off if he misjudges that a little bit. Will Vettel get a tow down the straight? Indeed he will, and he also has DRS. Will he be able to do anything? Will he try to do anything into turn 1? Both cars lap Stoffel Van Dorn down into turn 1. First and second hold position here. The tires on Bottas' car are 26 laps old. Vettel's tires, by contrast, are 7 laps old. Both drivers running the softs. Gap between Vettel and Bottas at the moment. Bottas in the lead, Vettel P2. Half a second almost exactly. Let's see, will Bottas dive into the pits here? He does not. Carries on for yet another lap. The gap holding station there between Vettel and Bottas, about half a second. Vettel is slightly closer to Bottas than he was on the previous lap. Bottas putting the block on into turn 1. Vettel trying an overtake. He thinks better of it. He was forced onto the outside line anyway. However, can he hang on with him through the long left-hander, that is, right-hander rather, through turn 3? He can, however, he is not quite close enough to try anything into 4, and 4 is not a great overtaking spot anyway, it must be said. Will it serve Vettel better to try and overtake or to wait for Bottas to make the pit stop? Hamilton is gaining on Vettel to the tune of about 1 second per lap at this point. The gap between those two, 4.7 seconds at the moment. There's an opportunity here for Sebastian Vettel through Sector 3. Bottas had a lock-up into Turn 10. It all depends on how Vettel is able to position himself out of that chicane and then into the final corner so that he can use that DRS and a tow down the start-finish straight, which is about 1 kilometer long. World Feed not showing us that battle at the moment. They trained on to Hamilton. Now they're showing us that battle again. Vettel with DRS and a big slipstream from Bottas ahead. Bottas moving all the way over on the track, forcing Vettel onto the grass. Vettel makes it work into turn 1, however, taking to the grass to make the move happen. Steely determination from Sebastian Vettel, and he's immediately gone. Just visually counting the gap between Vettel and Bottas, it's already over 1 second through 1 corner. Absolutely incredible difference in pace between those two cars. That's most likely down to the very disparate state of the tires at the moment. The order now, Vettel in the lead, Bottas P2, Hamilton P3, Ricciardo P4, Sergio Perez in P5, and Esteban Ocon in P6. A good showing so far for Force India. Pascal Wehrlein up there in P7. He has yet to stop. He's the only car that has yet to stop. Lewis Hamilton in the slipstream of his teammate. Bottas lets him by without any drama. I will say that defense by Valtteri Bottas was quite valiant, if not a little bit obscene in some regards. He was weaving all around on the circuit trying to block Vettel. Vettel was absolutely having none of it. The gap between Vettel and now Hamilton in P2, just over 4 seconds now. In replay here, watching that pass by Vettel on Bottas, that was that took a rather large set of attachments, I must say. Valtteri Bottas has seen the writing on the wall and has taken to the pit lane. We'll wait for him to cross the timing loop to confirm what tires he's gone on to. And Bottas has switched to the medium tire, so mediums on both of the Mercedes. At 39 minutes into the race, we are working lap 27 of 66. Mercedes are thinking that they'll have a chance to challenge Vettel by the end of the race. They're banking on the idea that Vettel's soft tires will go off before Hamilton and Bottas's medium tires. We'll see if that transpires. Something tells me it won't. Mercedes have not been making the best strategy calls, particularly on tire choice and timing so far this year. It basically did cost Hamilton the chance of fighting for the win in Australia, so we'll see if anything is able to come of that prediction. Right now, the gap between Hamilton and Vettel right up around 5 seconds, 4.933. I think the problem with the tire compounds this year is that Pirelli were very conservative because nobody really understood just what the downforce levels were going to be. The best that they could come up with for trying to test these 2017 tires was to run a 2014 or 2015 spec car with some extra wings thrown on it, and that's obviously not representative of what these 2017 cars can actually do. So I think they were just a little bit cautious, trying to make sure the tires would be able to deal with the all-out stress that they're under. Now, normally I would be very quick to criticize Pirelli. I am not a big fan of theirs. I haven't been since they became the sole tire supplier in 2011. However, I don't think I can fault them that much here because the testing regulations in Formula One are such that you're basically not allowed to test. And when you're designing a completely new sort of tire for a completely new sort of car, and you don't have anything representative on which you can test your prototypes, I think to go conservatively is about the only way you can go. I mean, the only feasible way that I think Pirelli could have had a representative car with which to test their tires would have been if a team like Williams, Ferrari, or McLaren said, use one of our 2004 or 2005 cars to test your tires with, because that's about the comparable levels of power and downforce that we've got, and no team was willing to step up and make that happen, so Pirelli were left running with 2014 and 2015 cars outfitted with weird-looking big wings. Meanwhile, it's slightly irrelevant, but Bottas has set fastest lap 124s. Yes, I agree. It is the fault of the FIA. They are way too restrictive in terms of when and where and how these guys can go testing. I think we, first of all, we really need just open testing effectively. I mean, Ferrari essentially are capable of doing that because they've got their own racetrack in their backyard, but I don't see what the harm is in allowing a team to spend its own money to go out testing for a day or two. It should be an expense incurred by the team and only by the team, just like it was in the old days. I don't understand what's wrong with that. Favorite season of 2005, 2006, 2008, 2012, 2010, or 2016? Huh. That's a tough one. I, to be honest, when I look back through my time being a Formula One fan, most often I tend to think of 2006 the most. I think because it was Michael Schumacher at the time. He was retiring and he wasn't coming back and things like that, and he was still at Ferrari and he was fighting with Fernando Alonso up until the last round for the World Championship, and that was my second year watching F1. That was when I truly understood the sport and was able to follow with all of the technical and political dramas that were going on. And it was the first year for the V8 formula as well. So it was my second year watching, and it was the start of a new era. So it felt like a fresh start for everything. And of course, you had those two legends fighting out with each other. It was really cool. And from an aesthetic standpoint, I think 2006, one of the few seasons where all of the cars, both at the front and at the back of the grid, looked really good. I can't think of an ugly 2006 car. Yes, I still have that game as well. Believe it or not, it was actually released in the United States. The PlayStation 3 was brand new at the time, and there wasn't much content for it, so there was a Formula One game out there. I don't know if it was sold under this name in any other markets, but in the US market it was sold under the name Formula One Championship Edition, and it was based on the 2006 season, based on the PS2 game F106. So that was the game that we got, and I still have it, and I still play it from time to time. It's still good. It has held up over the years. The first F1 game that I had was for the PS2. It was Formula One 2001 by Sony, not the EA version. The Sony version was really cool, and that is what acquainted me with Formula One at the very beginning. That was basically the first real Formula One content that I ever saw, and that was how I learned the ropes of driving open wheelers in sim racing. And to be honest, the 2002 Williams FW24 that was just released by MSF for Assetto Corsa reminded me an awful lot of those days long ago playing F1 2001 on the PS2. So, very cool game. I still play that one from time to time as well. Fernando Alonso pits and out. He's on the medium tires. Lap 33 of 66. We're halfway here in this race. Alonso and Van Dorn are still running, albeit a lap down. I think this is the most mileage Honda have had all season. Yeah, I did like the career mode in F1 Championship Edition or F1 2006, whatever name you know it by. There were effectively no changes to the game for the U.S. market, so yes, I do know exactly what you're talking about, and it was cool. It was reasonably immersive, and I did like the aspect of signing for teams and having to test before they gave you a contract. It was cool. I really did like it. There were a few things about it that, of course, are very dated. The AI is terrible. It was terrible back then, and it's even more terrible now, but they got it right. They got it absolutely right. The cars felt good. The graphics were great. The physics were good for its time, and particularly good for a console. I think they're still good for a console. And it was so cool. To be honest, I think my favorite car in that game, believe it or not, is the Toro Rosso. Because it's got the V10 engine, and it's got so much torque, and it sounds really good. I just wish there was a way to mod it so you could get 19,000 RPM out of it. And yes, every single test was at Manicourt, which I was okay with. I really like Manicourt. I didn't like the tests at... where else would they send you? They would send you to Silverstone sometimes, they'd send you to Spain sometimes, and I don't think they'd ever send you anywhere else. The only thing I didn't like about it, though, was when you would just be signed as a test driver for a team, and then they would make you do these interminable test sessions at every track. It was a lot. It really was a lot. Yeah, in terms of the testing situation, when you say make the prices equal, I don't think you can do that in terms of the development or production side, because every team's going to have slightly different demands. But you can make the prize money legal. Not legal, equal. So in other words, instead of giving Ferrari and Mercedes these massive payouts for the TV money, dole out the money based on the finishing order in the championship and just make it a flat rate for whatever it is. And then, of course, in terms of the TV exposure, give everybody an equal flat rate, because you all contribute to the show and you're all on TV at some point. So in terms of the TV rights, if you're in the Formula One World Championship, I think you should be entitled to an equal share of the TV money. Any purse that is attributed to finishing order for the season, or any individual race purses that may exist, that should be doled out according to finishing position. Virtual safety car has been deployed. I'm not entirely sure why, because of course US TV was in break at the time. Nick, you're saying Van Dorn is off. I am trying to confirm that on timing and scoring. I do not see where he has gone off. Mercedes in the pit lane here, trying to capitalize on the virtual safety car. If they pit Hamilton now and put him back on the soft tires, we may have a race on our hands. Lewis stays out. They're going to pit Bottas, unless he picked up a puncture or some sort of damage. I don't know why they would do that. Yes, incident with Van Dorn at turn 1. Lost the right front, apparently. I still have not seen the incident. Bottas stays out as well. I'm not entirely sure why Mercedes are in the pit lane. Perhaps they were just waiting to see if Ferrari were going to pit. Yes, I now see Van Dorn's car being craned away. It's not belching a ton of oil. And here's the replay. Felipe Massa, Stoffel Van Dorn into turn 1. Van Dorn just turned straight into Massa as if he didn't know he was there. On board with Van Dorn here. He's on the racing line. Massa's on the inside. Turns straight into him. Bang! Right front gone. We're working lap 36 of 66, 53 minutes into the race. On board with Massa here as he gets pelted by Van Dorn. No apparent damage to the Williams. Mercedes back out in the pit lane here with some tires. We'll see what's going on here. Hamilton in the pits. Hamilton going on to the softs. Okay, that's what they needed to do here. Now on the same tires as Vettel, but much newer. Will Ferrari react with a stop? I don't think so. That is Hamilton's second pit stop. So there's your answer for a 1 or 2 stop strategy. It appears to be an even split. Virtual safety car has been retracted. We're now back under racing conditions. The gap now between Vettel and Hamilton, 24 seconds. Of course, Hamilton took that pit stop very close here into turn 4 between Pascal Wehrlein and Daniel Kvyat. It is Carlos Sainz, I beg your pardon. Well, that was pretty dramatic. No harm done. Stoffel Van Dorn walking back into the paddock. He still has his helmet on. That's the universal sign of I don't want to talk to you right now. Hamilton fastest in Sector 2, 30.792. Compare that to Sebastian Vettel, who has just dived into the pits. All right, he has 22 seconds in hand over Lewis Hamilton. Will Vettel be able to get out in front? Is this a bit of a miscue by Ferrari? Let's see here. What tires does Vettel go on to? The mediums. Okay, Ferrari now, technically speaking, at a bit of a disadvantage here. Hamilton running on the softs. Vettel now running on those medium tires. Where is Lewis Hamilton? It's going to be very close here. Vettel still on the limiter here, now exiting the pit lane. Hamilton is right alongside him coming into turn 1. Vettel leaving the pits. They are wheel to wheel through turn 1. They make contact. Hamilton and Vettel make contact into turn 1. Vettel now leads Lewis Hamilton out of turn 2. There was contact between the two of them into turn 1. Lewis is going to be absolutely furious about that. Both drivers continue. There does not appear to be any damage on either car. Lewis Hamilton on the radio saying that was dangerous. I agree with that one. However, this is racing, and one of you two most likely is going to be the 2017 Formula One World Champion. Hamilton on the radio saying that he was alongside him, and Vettel pushed him wide. Will anything come of that? Judging by how the stewards have been calling things today, I don't think there's going to be any action taken. If they take action on that incident, then I'm going to have to say the stewards are trying to play for Hamilton here, but we'll see. In replay here, just how severe was the contact between Hamilton and Vettel? That was a sizable thump, but it was pretty much square on, rubber to rubber, sidewall to sidewall, so I don't think there will be any lasting effects from that except for some of that Pirelli lettering being rubbed off of each driver's tires on the left and right sides respectively. Ferrari absolutely loved that. Cheers going up in the garage there as they saw on television what Vettel was able to do maintaining that position. That was absolutely nip and tuck. Bottas has stopped. Lots of smoke coming out of the back of that Mercedes. The Mercedes is on fire, it does appear. I cannot tell where Bottas is stopped. It appears Bottas is stopped on the exit of turn 5. Yellow in Sector 2. We'll have to see what happened to Valtteri Bottas. There did not appear to be any external damage on Bottas's car, therefore I will say that is some sort of mechanical failure. If, in a perfect world, the two Mercedes cars are built identically, that would then start making me sweat bullets for Lewis Hamilton if I am on his side of the Mercedes garage. Bottas dropping out of the race now promotes Daniel Ricciardo to P3. The gap between Vettel and Hamilton at the front, just .651. A whole gaggle of cars here being headed up by Pascal Wehrlein. Lap traffic there. The leaders are now just scything their way through. Blue flags, of course, being waved where needed. Hamilton lost out a little bit to Sebastian Vettel there, trying to negotiate the lap traffic. Hamilton thought about a move up the inside of turn 1. He thought better of it, however. Wehrlein moves away, allowing the leaders to pass. It is now on between Vettel and Hamilton. This is the straight fight that we have waited all year so far to see. On board with Valtteri Bottas here. What happened? Trying to listen to the engine here. Engine sounds down on power and then it just quits. That sounds like an engine failure to me, and yes, he was well and truly on fire as he pulled off the track, so engine failure for Valtteri Bottas. Daniel Ricciardo, fastest lap, 1:23.686. That's a lap time if ever I saw one. Hamilton gone purple in Sector 1, 23.167. Compare that to Sebastian Vettel, 23.692. Sector 2 times, 31.715 for Vettel, 31.967 for Hamilton. So that gap holding station there just about half a second. Vettel and Hamilton now coming through Sector 3. Vettel has gone wide there through the penultimate corner. However, he gets a good exit launch. Hamilton holds station behind. There is a lapped car in front of Sebastian Vettel. It looks to be a Sauber. I believe it's Pascal Wehrlein. Hamilton with DRS, Vettel also with DRS, thanks to the lapped car in front of him. Vettel goes for the overtake. Hamilton overtakes as well. Both men now released with clear track ahead of them. This is a straight fight to the end. Hamilton, purple sector 1, 22.842. Sebastian Vettel, 22.882. They are within a couple hundredths of a second of each other. This is a battle. Hamilton is fastest in all three sectors. Yes, I can confirm. Actually, every car up to P6 now has been lapped. Nico Hülkenberg, the most recent car to be lapped. Hamilton, fastest lap, 123.663. Vettel, only a hundredth slower. U.S. terrestrial television has had absolutely terrible timing here because Lewis Hamilton on timing and scoring is in the lead, and I did not see the overtake. That makes me very angry. Lewis Hamilton has passed Sebastian Vettel for the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix. Wow. Hamilton, fastest lap, 123.663. Vettel has slowed down considerably. The gap now, 1.4 seconds between the two. Vettel radio to Ferrari saying, no chance. I wonder what that's all about. Official word from race control. Incident between Hamilton and Vettel. That wheel banging at turn 1. No investigation necessary. Alright, stewards, if you're not going to make any calls today, at least you're consistent about it. That overtake there by Lewis Hamilton on Sebastian Vettel. I think we can credit DRS with that one. Vettel, of course, being the lead car, did not have DRS. Hamilton did for being within 1 second, and that was the difference in straight line speed that enabled Lewis Hamilton to get ahead. Now, if Sebastian Vettel can get within 1 second, he'll also get that DRS advantage. However, the gap between them at the moment is 1.6 seconds. Pascal Wehrlein currently running in P7. He is well in the points for Sauber at the moment, albeit 1 lap down. Next car to go 1 lap down will be Esteban Ocon in the Force India running in P5, believe it or not. We could well see everybody up to P3 lapped in this race. It's not inconceivable that the leaders might be able to catch Sergio Perez by the time this race is over. We still have 20 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton, although he has taken the lead, he sounds very exasperated still on the radio. He says that the rear tires have overheated. He's going to have to slow down at some point. Could this bring it back into Ferrari's hands? This is going to be a frantic end to the Spanish Grand Prix. This is an absolutely exciting race. Scintillating, if I may say so. I am very happy that I chose to do the live commentary for this one. I almost didn't. Sebastian Vettel within 1 second now, just outside 1 second. 1.085 is the gap, now down to 1.052. If Vettel can get within 1 second over that DRS detection line, he will have DRS into turn 1. Hamilton has slowed down quite a bit. And disaster for Pascal Wehrlein. 5-second time penalty. Failure to stay to the right of the pit lane bollard on the entrance to the pit lane, I believe. He'll have 5 seconds added to his finishing time. That could put him out of the points in P11 as they run now. Wehrlein had better hope that everybody behind him drops out, because as they run right now, that would put him in P11 and out of the points. Sauber will be furious about that. Ferrari now warning Sebastian Vettel about his rear tires overheating, so tire heat is a concern on the Mercedes and on the Ferrari. Hamilton is indeed faster than Vettel. The last lap time for Hamilton, 124.347. Vettel, 124.630. The gap is 1.8 seconds. Yes, NBC is absolutely terrible with their commercial timings. We missed the overtake of Hamilton on Vettel there for the lead. They really need to get a handle on that one. Esteban Ocon has now been lapped. All the cars up to P5 have been lapped. 16 laps to go. Down to Ricardo, lapping Felipe Massa. Massa lets him go without any drama. And yes, Nathan, I have played R-Factor extensively. If you go back through the years on my channel, you'll see plenty of R-Factor videos. For its time, it was the best sim out there. However, compared to Assetto Corsa or iRacing or any other more modern sims, it's just old. It's still very good, but it's just old. We could be seeing another pit stop here, at least from Ferrari. Vettel saying that the medium tires don't really have anything left there. We'll see here. Ferrari could very easily make a pit stop and still maintain P2. Huh. World feed showing Kimi Räikkönen being the good guy that we all know that he is, and he doesn't want us all to see. Remember that young boy who was in tears after Kimi retired on lap 1? Well, the world feed just showed that boy getting to meet and take some pictures with Kimi Räikkönen in the Ferrari hospitality unit. This is why we all love Kimi Räikkönen, isn't it? He tries to put on this aloof, sometimes tough guy persona, but then he turns around and does something like that. Yeah. We love you, Kimi. The gap now between Hamilton and Vettel has grown to 2.8 seconds. Vettel is losing a lot of time here on those medium tires. I don't know if we're going to see a pit stop from Ferrari. If they do try a pit stop, they are definitely giving up on the race win, because I don't think Hamilton is going to stop. His tires, at least from the onboards here, the fronts look absolutely fine. I don't know how they feel, of course. Radio. Hamilton sounding a little bit more composed. He's now asking where he's losing time. I think the tires have come back to him. Sector time comparisons. Hamilton 23.2 Sector 1. Vettel 23.3 Sector 1. Sector 2, however, Hamilton 31.8. Vettel 31.5. 31.5 for Vettel. Working lap 54 of 66, only an hour and 18 minutes into this race. These cars are fast. The intelligent question of lap times between Hamilton and Vettel. Hamilton, his last lap, a 124.352. Vettel's last lap, 124.382. The gap holding steady at about 2.4 seconds. Blue flag for Sergio Perez in P4. Hamilton is about to lap him. Sergio Perez now one lap down. All the cars up to P4 have been lapped in this race. That is sensational. Sebastian Vettel now having to negotiate that lap traffic, having to take the long way around turn 4. Vettel clears Perez. He now has, I believe, Alonso in front of him. Yes. Alonso lets Vettel through without any drama. Gap now 3.1, Hamilton to Vettel. Hamilton's last lap time, a 125.054. He was hampered slightly by that lap traffic. Vettel's last lap, a 124.737. We'll see how that shakes down at the end of this lap. In replay here, Marcus Ericsson on Lance Stroll for P12. Very nicely done. Fernando Alonso is currently running in P15. 2 laps down. Ten laps to go. 1 hour, 21 minutes into this race. Yes, on track, Fairline is still P7, however, he will have that 5-second time penalty. At this point, that would put him in P10, so still a point potentially on the cards here for Sauber, even with that penalty. In terms of that McLaren chassis, I think it's very good. It, as we saw from Alonso yesterday, it has the potential to be up there in terms of raw lap pace with Williams and Renault. So, I mean, that's decent. If McLaren had a decent engine, say, I don't know, a Mercedes, yeah, I think they would be up there solidly in the points at the moment. Potentially both cars in the points. Yes, at this point, I don't think that potential three-stop strategy for Ferrari is going to play out. There's simply not enough time left for it to make any sense. They'd be giving up on the race win in pretty much any circumstance, unless Hamilton were to drop out. Let's not hope for that to happen. If there is a potential for a straight fight at the end, let's have it happen. But right now, the gap there being 4.2 seconds. At this point, I think Hamilton does have this pretty well cinched up. Although we do have to wonder, Valtteri Bottas did drop out with a mechanical failure. Bottas had the older spec engine in his car. They had a problem with the newer spec unit that they had slated for him to use in this race. I do believe Hamilton is using that newer engine, and Bottas had the failure on the older engine. Now, I don't know what the mileage was on that Bottas engine, but it failed, and we'll see if there are any knock-on effects for Hamilton as we come into the closing 6 laps of this race. So far, everything looks solid. Carlos Sainz getting very squirrely over those apex curbs in Turn 4. He was able to recover it. Carlos Sainz telling Toro Rosso that he is down on power at the moment. Perhaps at the end of the race, just the MGU batteries perhaps feeling a little bit fatigued and not holding quite as much charge as they could at the beginning. We'll watch that. Six laps to go in the 2017 Spanish Grand Prix. The gap now between Hamilton and Vettel at the front, 3.2 seconds, now down to 2.9 coming through Sector 1. Last laps from both drivers, Hamilton a 124.887, Vettel a 124.187. Hamilton was dealing with some lap traffic there on the previous lap. Everybody up to Daniel Ricciardo in P3 has been lapped, so the last car that is at least one lap down is Sergio Perez running in P4. Yes, definitely agree there. No need for a 3-stop from Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel now coming into that lap traffic, coming up behind Felipe Massa. Massa waves Vettel through. I disagree there on Massa blocking Vettel. Massa went intentionally wide going into turn 10, and Vettel simply followed him on the same line. I don't think that that was intentional on the part of Massa. Five laps to go. Per result of the lap traffic on the previous lap, Vettel was a second slower in lap time than Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton did a 124.698. Vettel did a 125.676. The gap is now 4.2 seconds. To his credit, Fernando Alonso still running in P14, carrying Lance Stroll in front. Alonso is all over the back of Lance Stroll. We're going to see a dive bomb into turn 1 from Fernando Alonso. I am absolutely sure of it. Alonso will have DRS down the start-finish straight. DRS open on Alonso's McLaren. And Alonso making easy work down the start-finish straight of Lance Stroll. I dare say, with 5 laps to go, at great risk of imparting the commentator's curse on Fernando Alonso, that we may see a McLaren see the checkered flag. Fernando Alonso, just 5 laps to go, running now in P13. Four laps to go for Lewis Hamilton here at the lead. Double checking that storyline there for Pascal Wehrlein. At this point, adding 5 seconds to his time may actually secure him P9. We'll have to see how things shake out here, but Wehrlein still is going to be in the points even after that 5-second time penalty is added. Three laps to go. I agree here. Let's try and give driver of the day to Kimi Räikkönen, because that was just a very nice gesture for him to do with that very, very young fan. The gap between Hamilton and Vettel holding at 4.3 seconds. There is absolutely nothing that Vettel can do about that now with just 2 laps to go. I don't know about all of you, but I just voted for Kimi Räikkönen for driver of the day. And starting the penultimate lap, Kimi Räikkönen, Lewis Hamilton, fastest lap of the race, 1:23.593, just stamping his authority on this race. It did not have his name on it from the beginning. Yes, he had pole position. However, He lost the lead to Sebastian Vettel at turn 1. However, through some pit strategy and some tire degradation, Hamilton was able to retake the lead, and he remains there in P1 now, working lap 65 of 66. 123.593, fastest lap of the race for Lewis Hamilton. The two Williams, Lance Stroll locking up big time into turn 4. He maintains his position. Kevin Magnussen losing a spot to Romain Grosjean. Magnussen has a puncture, according to team radio. I don't see it visually, perhaps. Yes, the left rear is down on Magnussen's car. That is a tough break. Second to last lap puncture. Hamilton has started the final lap. That puncture for Magnussen caused by contact, actually quite severe contact with Daniel Kvyat. There's going to be some sort of look at that, I would assume. Magnussen had been set for P9. He rejoins in P14. However, that now means that Verline, with his 5-second penalty, is going to finish 8th. It keeps getting better for Pascal Wehrlein. Lewis Hamilton now coming through Sector 3 for the final time. Vettel over 4 seconds behind. Lewis Hamilton untouchable here in the closing corners of the Spanish Grand Prix. Through the chicane for the final time. There is lap traffic in front of him. It doesn't matter, however. Coming now down through the final 2 corners. Lewis Hamilton bringing the Mercedes gracefully over the line, doing some slaloms as he takes the checkered flag in the 2017 Spanish Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel finishes in P2. The final gap 3.490 between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. A well-deserved victory for Lewis Hamilton. He kept his head about him amid all of the challenges that this Grand Prix threw at him, and he takes a well-deserved 25 points. Also, this Mercedes victory means the end of the ping-pong pattern that we have seen throughout this championship so far, alternating between Ferrari and Mercedes winning sequential races. Mercedes, now the first team in 2017 to take back-to-back victories. Valtteri Bottas, of course, won 2 weeks ago in Russia, and now Lewis Hamilton wins in Spain. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in third, 75 seconds down on P1. And everybody else from P4 down to the last car classified in P16, Lance Stroll, down at least 1 lap. Everybody from P11 to P16 down 2 laps. Absolutely relentless pace set by those front runners. And yes, we can confirm Fernando Alonso has crossed the line. He has seen the checkered flag for the first time in 2017. Fernando Alonso, let the record show, he finishes P12 in the McLaren Honda in his home Grand Prix. Absolutely wonderful job from Force India, finishing 4th and 5th, a double points finish, and well into the points for both of the cars, Perez and Ocon, 4th and 5th respectively. Lewis Hamilton absolutely loving the fact that he won this race. He's climbing out of the cockpit as the car is still out on track, loving it. Fernando Alonso also apparently was carrying a Spanish flag on board with him just in case something spectacular happened. However, he is flying that arm aloft as he is on his cool-down lap. Nick, thank you very much. I enjoyed having you here. Yes, that is the damage now done to the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. Mercedes inherit the lead in both. We'll have to confirm this. Mercedes will lead the Constructors' Championship at very least. Yes, Vettel will still lead the Drivers' Championship. We will stay with you here on the live stream as the cars pull into Parc Fermé, and we'll stay with you through the podium interviews. Yeah, these races in 2017, they are very exciting at the beginning and through the middle, but they do tend to trail off at the end. I don't know if we're seeing effects of tire wear, fuel saving, or driver fatigue, or a combination of all three of those variables, but yeah, the last 20 laps were kind of boring, to be honest, and it was very surprising to see Sebastian Vettel just fall off the pace like he did. He was really able to defend his lead after that second pit stop, but then there was just nothing left. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say they're fuel saving toward the end. Because, of course, they put as little fuel in the car as possible, and then they just manage it throughout the Grand Prix to make it to the end and still have at least 1 liter left in the car for the FIA fuel sample. But I don't know why we see such a drop-off in the pace toward the end, even though Hamilton set the fastest lap on lap 64 of 66. Honestly, I don't know what needs to be done to fix that problem, but yeah, the last 20 laps were a bit boring. Lewis Hamilton jumping out of the cockpit. If we thought he was feeling tired during the race with all of that exasperated radio chatter, he's certainly not showing it now in Parc Fermé. Lots of hugs and congratulations from the Mercedes guys to their man. This is Lewis Hamilton's 55th career victory. Sebastian and Lewis greeting each other in Parc Fermé. There doesn't seem to be any animosity between those two. Daniel Ricciardo a little bit late on arrival into Parc Fermé. He doesn't seem to be too enthusiastic about being there, but I'm sure he will take a podium. His first of the year. Yes, we can talk about the history of Mercedes and really German auto manufacturers in general. Yes, we We know why Mercedes got involved in racing. Of course, it was because Hitler wanted basically propaganda to make Germany and German products look good on the world stage, and one of the ways in which he did that was to invest a lot of money into companies like Mercedes and Auto Union at the time, and they had a lot of success in the 1930s with Grand Prix Racing, and it's no secret that Nazi money went into building Mercedes into the organization that it became. However, just like I don't think it's fair to judge Germany in the modern day based off of any legacy that Hitler left behind, I don't think it's fair to judge Mercedes based off of their financiers from the past either. Right? We can talk about the Le Mans 1955 disaster, and basically that was caused by an error by a Mercedes driver. However, the fire was caused because of the construction of the car. The bodywork was made out of magnesium, and magnesium, when it's exposed to high enough temperature, it burns so vigorously and with such high temperature that it can't be extinguished through any conventional means. And the fire crews, as rudimentary as they were at the time, they didn't know any better. They threw water on the magnesium fire, and it only made it worse and caused it to spread. The oxidation of magnesium in the atmosphere, obviously you get magnesium oxide and then a lot of hydrogen released, and it's just leaching the hydrogen from the water, and it's just exasperating that fire situation. So that's the story of Le Mans 55, and I believe 80 spectators died in that accident. But in terms of being able to judge Mercedes or BMW or Porsche or Volkswagen, for example, in terms of history and their financial heritage of a very much and very thankfully bygone era, I don't think it's quite fair. The Volkswagen Beetle, for example, is it's the most highly sold car in history, and Volkswagen translates as people's car, and Hitler wanted a car that every German could afford, and that's why the Volkswagen exists. Is it fair then to say that everybody who owns a Volkswagen supports Hitler? I don't think so. Just my opinion, but I think as ridiculous as an era in history as the 1930s and 1940s were for Europe, I don't think it's fair to allow that legacy to taint what happens today. No, we're always open for sharing opinions here. I mean, that's all I've done, and that's all you've done, and any opinion is just as valid as any other. We're all entitled to one, and whether or not I believe it is my prerogative, but no, absolutely. Any thoughts that anybody has about anything, feel free to share, and, if they're interesting, we'll talk about them. Also got to remember that the automobile as we know it was invented by Mercedes, going back to 1885. The Patentwagen and the Motorwagen, the two horseless carriages as they were Daimler products. Daimler later merging with Benz to create Mercedes-Benz, and that goes back to the 1880s. In any event, it's podium time here at the Spanish Grand Prix. Ricciardo and Vettel have already mounted the podium, and out comes Lewis Hamilton. Stand by for the British and German national anthems. The trophies now being presented. Lewis Hamilton throwing his trophy aloft. He seems very happy with this victory, as we've said. He certainly now believes that all of this fighting could potentially culminate in winning the World Championship, as does, I am sure, Sebastian Vettel. This is going to be an absolutely great rivalry throughout this entire year. Also, credit to Daniel Ricciardo. He had a very quiet race. We didn't really see him on television, but he put in a steely drive and got the job done for Red Bull. Little bit of trivia for you. The two national anthems that you heard, God Save the Queen and the national anthem of Germany, actually, both of those melodies have been used as a national anthem by Germany throughout history. Some of you who are history buffs may be familiar with the song Heil dir im Siegerkranz, yes. That was the anthem of the Prussian Empire, which of course later turned into Germany. And obviously the melody that is used today, written by Joseph Haydn, adapted from one of his string quartets. We will see who's doing the interviews in a moment. Right now, just some pictures for television with all of your podium finishers. And doing the interviews today, for the first time I can remember, Pedro de la Rosa, native of Barcelona. Of course, former Formula One driver. Very cool to see him on the podium. Lewis sounding suitably pleased with his result, as you might expect. This is a very upbeat demeanor from Hamilton. We're not quite used to seeing that from him, particularly at the end of a hard race like that, but you can tell that he's taking a lot of energy from this victory and just this whole atmosphere today. He's absolutely loving it. Pedro de la Rosa confirming for us that Sebastian Vettel still leading the Drivers' Championship by 6 points over Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton drinking about half of the bottle of champagne there, as Danny Ricciardo is telling us about his good fortunes with Valtteri Bottas retiring. I have to wonder, maybe that's not the best way to rehydrate after 2 hours of hard work, Lewis. Very nice interviews by Pedro de la Rosa. Very happy to see him back, still involved in Formula One. I do believe he does commentary either for mainstream Spanish or for local Catalan television, but good to see him back there. I've missed him. I regarded him quite highly. I've always thought he was a solid performer. I think he just sort of tried to stick around a little bit too long with that last year in HRT, but very nice to see him back. Also, very nice demeanor from Lewis and from Sebastian up on the podium. There does not appear to be any bad blood between them. They were just fighting really hard today, and Lewis came out on top. In a slight twist of circumstances, the order could very easily be reversed between those two. Very nice to see that they remain cordial and professional, if not somewhat warm, when they are together there on the podium. Yes, how did you lose -2 kilos? I think that was a simple Freudian slip there. Obviously, when the drivers are out there, they're losing a lot of weight in water because it's hot in the cockpit, and they're doing a lot of very strenuous physical work, so mostly water weight there lost there. And yes, it is possible to lose 2 kilos. I'm an avid runner, and just as an experiment, sometimes I'll weigh myself before and after a run, and yes, even I could lose 2 kilos after a run. So yeah, it's absolutely possible that you could lose that much weight just in water, driving a car like this. Anyway, guys, we had an absolutely scintillating race today. At least the first half of it was very entertaining. The second half, maybe we could work on that. But very cool race today and a very cool result. 55th career victory for Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes now taking 2 consecutive victories. Russia and now Spain. Bottas and Hamilton, respectively. In 2 weeks, we will go to the Jewel in the Formula One crown, Monaco. The Monaco Grand Prix gets started 2 weeks from last Thursday, actually. Remember, we practice on Thursday in Monaco. Friday is a traditional day off in the Principality, as far as I understand. And of course, running that race 100% on public roads in a country that's only a couple of square miles in its total area, you do have to keep the roads open as much as possible. So, 2 weeks from now, Monaco. We will be absent Fernando Alonso, however, who will be running the Indianapolis 500 on the same day. We'll be talking about that for sure. In his seat, we will have Jenson Button making a one-off return to Formula One. Mark Webber has called that a non-story. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, but Jenson Button will be back driving for McLaren in Monaco, so a familiar face there, and of course a former world champion who hung up his helmet at the end of last year. That'll be good, and Button, I'm sure, will be encouraged by the fact that Alonso managed to finish the Grand Prix, which obviously is something that he hasn't managed to do before, not through any fault of his own. However, perhaps Jenson Button at Monaco might be able to pull something out of the bag and get some points maybe for McLaren. Monaco, of course, being a great equalizer. Until next time, though, I do thank all of you very much for joining me here for our live commentary of the Spanish Grand Prix. I hope you all enjoyed it. I certainly did. Until next time, Ferrariman601 saying thank you very much, and we will see you soon.